The goal of the show is to help you break in and thrive in advertising and marketing. Welcome back to our brand side segment where we're interviewing the folks agency professionals report to. Today's guest is a Hall of Famer. It's Sofia Colucci, the CMO of North America at Molson Coors and one of Forbes' top 50 most influential CMOs. She's led award-winning work for brands like Coors Light, Miller Lite, Blue Moon, and plenty more. Her team is behind some of the boldest ideas in the beverage marketing category today, from beer flavored Pringles to real-time campaigns that hit group chats and headlines. We were in their office in Chicago for this recording, and it was a pleasure. We'll talk a lot. You're going to learn a lot. Really, what's on her mind is creative effectiveness, and she'll teach you what it takes to lead a massive brand portfolio, how to be a client agencies actually love to work with, and the framework that they use at Molson Coors to make creative work that performs. Also, why starting on bacon and meat snacks helped launch her to the top of her career. She's been named Woman of the Year by Chicago Ad Federation, a Campaign US Top 50 CMO, and a Brand Innovators Top 100 Woman in Marketing. You'll see why when she starts talking in this show. Let's get into it. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Sofia Colucci, welcome to the Breaking and Entering BrandSide podcast. How the heck are you doing today?
I am good. I'm thrilled that you guys came in for this. I love your clips, your 60-second clips on LinkedIn.
Thank
I
you.
view them pretty much daily, and I was thrilled that you wanted to chat.
I mean, you guys were on it this morning as we're recording this. It is what, Thursday, April 17th, the work that came out with Pringles.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
The beer flavored,
Yes.
Miller Lite flavored
Yeah.
chips, crisps.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's exactly beer in a can to new levels. The team, it's all the team under Ann Legan, and they've been working on it for a while, and it just makes sense. We always talk about partnerships or collaborations that feel right for the brand and the role of the product and the category, and this feels right.
We definitely need to talk about these collaborations throughout your career, and some of the high ones that that have gotten so much attention have made it into our friends' group chats as well. And they're not advertising adjacent in any way, shape, or form. Breaking through culture through these partnerships will definitely be on the agenda today. But your role is CMO North America for North America Molson Coors Beverage Company. Is that
Got it.
correct?
That's correct. Just over 2 years now. Yeah.
Just over 2 years. What does this mean? What are you looking over? Tell us about yourself and your role today.
Sure. So basically, I've been at Molson Coors now close to 8 years. So I started on innovation, like launching new brands into new spaces, really fun. Then made my way back to brand on Miller and our economy portfolio. And then now for the last couple of years, CMO. So essentially, our team is responsible for obviously the branding, really the portfolio of these different iconic brands. So whether it's Miller, Coors, Molson in Canada, Blue Moon. So we have our beer. We also have flavor. So we have brands like Topo Chico, Simply. We just launched a brand called Happy Thursday. And we're also now starting to get into non-alc as well, too. So we have Zoa, which is a energy drink with Dwayne Johnson. We just announced a partnership with Fever Tree. So I don't know if you've ever heard of those products, but it's actually these really amazing mixers with alcohol. And we actually just acquired a brand out of Australia called Naked Life. So it's Australia's #1 zero proof cocktail. So what we're trying to do as a company is we obviously our core and our history is in beer. We're never going to walk away from that, but we also know that, consumer dynamics are continuing to evolve. And we think it's really important for us to have a broad portfolio that really meets consumers where they are. So that's why we're going from just beer to beverages.
Interesting. So you're looking over all this portfolio here. I mean, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of those are multiple brands.
Multiple brands, multiple segments. Luckily, we have obviously an incredible team, not just the marketers. We have all of our cross-functional partners. And so really, it obviously goes without saying, it's a big team effort. And it's so much fun. Like it really is. So, I wake up, our team wakes up, and we think to ourselves, man, we're doing some incredible work and we're really excited to do it.
Yeah. So how do you kind of corral that team and like all the different brands within the portfolio? What is your job specifically?
So my job, I mean, look, at this point, like obviously I get involved with the work, but we've got incredibly talented marketers. So there's a marketing leadership team. So there's vice presidents of marketing that sit across the different portfolios. So we've got an awesome VP of marketing, Leslie, in Canada. So she oversees all of Canada. And then we have different vice presidents or senior directors, depending. So we have someone overseeing Miller, Coors, above premium flavor, beer, economy. So
Got it.
there are lots of talented people. Maya here, who's sitting across from me, you can't see her. She leads up our brand comms side of things. We've got Justine, and she's actually, she was just promoted into a new role all around leading our creative effectiveness ambition. So we'll talk about that. So my job at this point, like there's certain things that I definitely get more involved in, like Super Bowl is a good example. But in general, like what I'm trying to do is like I'm ultimately responsible for the both driving top and bottom line growth across this portfolio and really just thinking of the marketing levers behind it. So at the most common level, like you could talk, some people call them 4Ps, some people call them 6Ps, but how do you manage all the different levers within the marketing mix to make your brands grow? And we like to think about it is that, we like to think, how do we give consumers a reason to reach for our brands? And so that for us, it's, our vision is to build brands that make people want to hang out with us. And so that's in beer, in alcohol, what you hold in your hand says so much about you. So the brand building aspect of it is huge.
hmm I was going to ask you, I think you might have answered it, but maybe it'll open up some other
Yeah.
thoughts too. Like, how would you describe the work that Molson Coors makes?
Yeah. So I think like people might look at it in different ways. Like I've had a lot of people say, wow, like you guys are really great at building your brands and culture and you're not afraid to take risks and do creative things. And we're definitely, I think, and we love creativity, but we like to say like we love creativity and we like it even more when it sells
hmm
beer or a beverage. So, and in the last number of years, we've actually started to really sharpen what our creative ambition is. And it's all around creative effectiveness. And for us, it's, we have a very clear ambition. It's case for case. We want to be the most creatively effective beverage company in the world. And by that, what we mean is, we need to be driving, obviously, creativity, but we need to be driving results with it. And we measure that with brand health. We look at, our sales, and we look at our KPIs around, are we putting out really great work out into the world?
That's good to know. Because if I'm working at an ad agency, I just want to make the best creative work potentially. People might be thinking that as they're just getting into their careers, or maybe they just got into an agency, whatever it might be. But you have to remember on your side of things, it has to be effective as well.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
that's a great reminder.
Yeah, and the great news is, and we can talk because we went into this ambition and we've created a framework, and we're definitely going to talk about that today. And we built it with our agency partners, and so
Mm,
they were part of the journey with us. And I think, and we have some incredible agency partners, and they're in it to sell beer as well too, or
mhm.
any of our beverages, because they also know that the work's going to keep on coming if it produces results. So luckily, we're all on the same page.
Got it. Got it. Because I might just, if I'm an art director, copywriter, I might just want to win a can.
Yeah.
But you're thinking, you're thinking that, and you're thinking FEs
Yeah,
too,
and
like
we're
the
thinking
critic.
of you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a great look. Like it's a great provocation and push. And I've seen both sides of it. And
hmm
so, I've been now working especially like at Molson Coors, where we do get to do a lot of creative work. Like, yeah, like I've seen the full spectrum of sometimes people just want to do hardworking work that, is never going to win an award. And sometimes it's like, hey, this is going to win an award. I can. And like, and I think it's about finding that balance. And what I've said is like, we've actually, look, like we like to be recognized just as much as anyone. And we also know that recognition, especially for our agency partners, is a good thing
hmm
because it also helps them attract the best creatives as well, too.
Yeah.
But what we've tried to do too is really think about it like, how do we continue to push against effectiveness? And so, for instance, like we have won some, like last year, we actually did quite well at Cannes, and we had some work that won some gold lions, which was awesome. Our goal, and and we've worked with the Cannes Lion Advisory Board, and they're awesome. And so we can talk about that. But we've been pretty clear, like there's some marketers that say, hey, down the road, our goal is to be a can line marketer of the year.
Hmm.
For me, I actually think about it. I want to win a creative effectiveness can lion, like around effectiveness. Like that would be great for us.
Yeah.
The other one too that we said is yes, we really believe in FEs
Yeah.
because if you think about the case studies around FEs, it is all around effectiveness. So, I mean, look, like last year in 2024, we actually were the FE's marketer of the year. Like not just not just
That's
beer.
legit.
Yeah.
That's legit.
Yeah. And it was across work that was done by many of our brands, not just one brand, with many of our agency partners. And so
Yeah.
we were really proud of that. And look, in some years you might get it, some years you don't. But I think like that's again going back to our ambition around creative effectiveness. We're laser focused on
Yeah.
that. If other things happen, if there's like Clio's or One Show or all these different
Mhm.
awards, great, and that it does make people feel good. It makes us feel good too. And we want to celebrate with all
Yeah.
our partners, but ultimately, like we need to be driving the health of our brands. We need to give consumers a reason to reach for us.
Mhm.
And we need to do that with creatively effective work.
Totally. Totally. Um, I know it's very hard to win an Effie, and those submissions are a nightmare. I left agency life right when I was supposed to do an Effie submission. I saw the parameters, and that is not for the faint of heart. That is legit stuff there. So I have a lot of props to you all. You mentioned giving your agency partners some recognition, and you also mentioned that framework. I don't know if we can get into that, but I would love to hear about like some of the agencies that you're working with. Maybe like how do you even navigate that?
Yeah.
Like how do you decide which agency is working on what? Any sort of line of sight there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like, and I know you've worked at agencies as well too. Like I think it's always that balance of having a diverse roster of agencies, and we have a lot of brands both in the U.S. and Canada, and they play in different segments. And so I think it's finding that balance of how do you have the right number of agency partners so that you know they're diversified across your brand, so you
Hmm.
have different people looking at your brand so they feel and look different, but at the same time you also need to make sure that you're giving your best agency partners the right amount of work so you remain an important client to them,
Interesting. Yeah.
because I like what we have seen in the past, and I give my predecessor, Michelle, a ton of credit for this. She's awesome. I've learned so much from her. And, even when she came in, I remember at the time I was running innovation. So I was probably a little less connected to the brand side of things.
Yeah.
But even she looked at the roster and she's like, wow, we probably have too many agencies. So
Yeah.
how do we start to get focused? And we've continued to do that. And so what I would say is we've got a great roster of agencies and they work across our brands. So for instance, we work with Droga 5,
Hmm.
and they really, I mean, they focus a lot on our Coors Light work.
Shout out Scott Bell.
Love Scott.
He's got to get on the show. He
Oh,
said he would come on. So
well, now Sophia's asking for him to come on, so I'll send him a text. Scott, you got to come on.
we should call him right now. We should call him. Should we call him? Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, Scott's great. I was with him when we shot our first Super Bowl campaign together, and he's awesome.
Which one was that?
That was the high stakes beer ad, and that
Gotcha.
was with Droga. So that was the first Super Bowl campaign we had done in 33 years, because before that we couldn't advertise because our competitors they had exclusivity.
Mm.
They gave that up, so that was 3 Super Bowls ago, and that was when we came out with the high stakes beer ad.
Got it.
So that was with Droga. That was awesome. We continue to do great work with Droga. We're really happy with them. We also work with different agencies as well. So we work with like DDB. We call it like the DDB collab. So that's Adam and Eve, DDB Chicago, as well as Alma. And Alma's been great because not only were their roots in, working with Latino consumers, but they have actually proven to be an agency that goes, well into the general market.
Yep.
They like to say that too. So we've done really creative things with them. We also work a lot with Rethink out of Toronto, Aaron Starkman.
Shout out Aaron.
Mike Ditrick and that team. They're great. And so they have worked with us for years on Molson. And what I love, the work that we're doing there, it's really tied to this great platform for Molson, but then at the same time, we're doing a lot of culturally relevant work. And then finally, we also work with Mischief, and they've been fantastic with us too. So we did our last campaign with Mischief, and they've been awesome across a lot of our brands. So they touch Coors Light, they touch Blue Moon. I can't forget Leo. So Leo,
they just did the 50th.
50th. Yeah. So Leo, we really started working with them recently again in the last year on Miller Lite, and we're really proud of the recent 50th anniversary work that we
Yeah,
did.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not far away too. They're right down the street over yonder.
Correct.
You just go pop over there.
You
Yeah,
got
you can yell at them or say what's up,
it.
check in. Like, how's that going over there?
Yeah, but look, so with these agency partners, like we really like we actually just had our we have like a trainings and stuff we do with our team. We have our annual marketing academy where we bring in all of our marketers actually across Latin America because we look at some of the global work there too, Canada, US, and we had a session which is all about partnering with agencies and loving your agencies and we really believe so much in that. And like actually one of the things that we talked a lot about is I hate the term like when people are talking about work or things, they go, I hate when people say the agency or it's like, no, like who's your agency? Is it DDB? Is it Leo? Who's the person? Because I don't like to think of agencies as transactional. To us, it's like we're all partners, we're all
Yeah.
teammates in it together.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you have multiple agencies that you're working with, and then like, what would be the other option then? Have like just one behemoth, like doing all the work across the different brands? Like,
Yeah, we
why?
could. We
Yeah.
could. And frankly, in the past, like there were times, I would say probably like maybe 4 or 5 years ago where we had a moment in time where one agency in particular had a ton of the work.
Hmm.
And it's fine and it can work. I think it really depends on the people that are there during that time. Like
Yes.
agencies are one thing. The reality is it all comes down to the people that you're working
Yes.
with. And so I think right now we're in an amazing situation, I think, where we've got good relationships with our agency partners. We've got great talent at those agencies, but you need to continue to foster those
Hmm.
relationships. And also when I say that, it's not just about being nice. Like part of being a good client is also giving good direction, giving good feedback,
Hmm.
prioritizing, making choices. And I think like it's not just about being a kind person, it's also just about like having good leadership as a client.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, yeah, I think all this is interesting. But the thing that you said about the people is actually what we tell the aspiring advertisers out there all the time. They ask, should I go to a small agency? Should I go to a large
Yeah,
agency? Independent versus not? And I used to say, go to a large agency, get that big experience, you get multiple clients. Now I just say, find the people that make the work you like
totally.
and see where they're at because they move around quite a bit in this world.
Yeah.
The agency names stay the same, but the people move around constantly.
Well, and especially in agencies. And that
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
has that has sometimes like you're right. Sometimes it can be tricky as well too,
Mhm.
because then you don't want to keep as a client moving from one agency to another.
Yeah,
But I agree with you, it comes down to the people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Got it, got it. So, can we talk then about your journey? How
Yes.
you broke into all of this? I understand the agency landscape. I don't know how to break into the brand side. So, at what point did you say to a young Sophia, "I want to work in marketing"?
For sure. So I grew up in Canada,
Mhm.
and you might just hear it a little bit in my accent. But before that, you're nodding. You're like, yeah, I hear it. I've been in the U.S. now for 14 years, so I feel like I lost it a little bit. But actually, you know what? I think my earliest memory of probably being into the idea of marketing or advertising. So my family's from Uruguay, and I lived there when I was younger, and we just watched a lot of television. And like even to this day, I still remember a commercial for insect repellent, and it was a jingle. And I mean,
Can
I,
you
I
sing
can
it?
sing it, sure. Which my siblings like sometimes like they can't believe I still remember. I also remember a cigarette jingle, but I'm not going to sing that one.
Okay.
It's uno, dos y tres. Mafu le conviene con uno, dos y tres. And then it goes, uno, es económico. Dos, huele bien. Tres, mata insectos y olores también. Yeah, yes. By the way, I cannot sing as is,
Very
evidenced
nice.
by that.
I
That's
think we need like a translator.
that's fantastic.
But I do have a pretty solid memory, especially when it comes to songs.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
sad what the what's in my mind. I'm like, this is not a good use of my mind space
Oh my
right
gosh, it
now.
just comes out too, yeah.
But
What's your karaoke song then of
no,
choice?
I won't do karaoke because I'm a terrible singer. But
Oh, come on.
jingles, I'm good at.
Interesting.
Whistling, I can do for whatever reason.
Okay.
Yeah, but
How old were you when you heard that
that jingle for the
I
first
would have
time?
been like 6 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, because we left Uruguay when I was 7. So anyway, so that major kind of moment. Then throughout the years, my parents traveled a lot, great family, but again, we watched a lot of TV. I was, like latchkey kid. You watch TV, you
Mhm.
watch commercials, so a lot of that. I think one of my first part-time jobs in Canada, I was in high school. There's the equivalent of Walgreens is called Shoppers Drug Mart.
Okay.
And it's actually probably it's a better drugstore because they don't have Targets there. So it's like the drugstore there at Shoppers is quite good. And I remember I loved it. I worked in cosmetics and I remember stocking the shelves and like seeing these like L'Oreal like hair
Mhm.
dye boxes. And I would see them and I would look at them and I go, these feel so much more upscale than the Revlon ones. At the time I was just really kind of noodling, why is that? And why do I think this is better? And just being around all of these consumer packaged goods in my part-time job, it
Mhm.
just got me like really, really interested in it. Then I went to university. So in Canada, we call it university, not college. And I remember I did an undergrad in business because I'm a child of immigrants. So you take something really practical. So all 4 of my siblings and I took business, but I didn't know what in business I wanted to take. But I remember my first year doing a marketing course. And I thought to myself, wait, you can have a job where you get to work on these things like these products I was interested in
Mhm.
my part-time job or these commercials. So that was really, I think, what finally nailed it for me was just like seeing that there could be something that I was interested in and that felt kind of fun.
Yeah.
But what I will say, and this is something that I've said before too, that I'm not I don't subscribe to the philosophy of when adults tell young kids, pursue your passions. It's I just like I'm gonna tell you why. And because I think that sometimes it can lead people down this path of, oh, I gotta do something that's just like in it because I love it and not pursue like financial success. And by the way, I'm not saying that you need to just chase money, but I think that you need to be pragmatic about what
Mhm.
you choose. And so that's why like marketing for me was quite pragmatic because it was something that I found interesting. Then over time, like I was pretty good at it because it kind of balances art and, a bit of science in the business. And it also requires leadership skills. So things that I could do. But then you can make a living out of it too, and,
Yep.
and I tell people too, like so I've only worked at 3 big companies. So I started, out of university, I worked at a Canadian food company called Maple Leaf Foods. Then I went to PepsiCo and now I'm at Molson Coors. But even when I was at Maple Leaf Foods, like it's as Canadian as you can get with Maple Leaf Foods. And one of the first categories I worked on was, well, first it was meat snacks. And then I made my way up to sausages. And then I finally hit the mecca with bacon.
Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe you've heard me talk about bacon before because I talk about it a lot.
I was gonna ask about bacon.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, there's an obsession with bacon.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the first assignments I remember my VP of marketing like gave me, I was an assistant marketing manager on meat snacks. The brand was Hot Rods and these long dry meat snacks. And I remember he goes, Sophia, I feel like we could give these out for Halloween. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah, this was in the summertime. So I remember the following Halloween, like I went out and I did audits to understand like, what's the packaging for Halloween on regular candy? What's the pricing? And I remember I put together a little audit of a recommendation for a Halloween hot rod to launch the following Halloween. It's so ridiculous. I got so excited about it. And yes, like, so maybe I was passionate, but I started in meat snacks. And I remember at the time, this is my VP, Adam, who's awesome. And he just laughed because he's like, I can't believe how much you enjoy this. But I think it was more, I like the idea that I could make an impact, that I could
Mhm.
come up with an idea. And then a year later, I walked into a store and I saw it there. And that was really cool.
So the Halloween candies worked then? The
Halloween
Halloween
hot rods. The Halloween
yeah.
hot rods
Got it.
worked. Yeah.
Got it.
The big insight I remember seeing it was I realized, oh, all these chocolate bars and candies don't actually have Halloween stuff around them. Because then, once you hit November 1st, you're screwed. So
Mhm.
you actually need to just put it in the pack that everyone wants it in the price point, and then just make sure it gets merchandised in the Halloween aisle. But anyway,
Interesting.
I give you this example more so because what I try to tell people is not just to, be pragmatic and think about something you like, something that you're good at that you can make a career out of, but also start anywhere, start somewhere,
Mhm.
and then work your butt off. And then what's going to happen is because you like it and because you're working hard, you're going to hopefully do well. And then you're going to get more and more opportunities. And those opportunities are going to become more and more interesting because you become better. So if I look at where I started in my career, I was on meat snacks. Yes, got to bacon, which is obviously, what we all aspire. But now, like, I get to be part of a team that's working on Super Bowl commercials, and it's really amazing. But I didn't start here. And so that's one of those things just for everyone to keep in mind that you got to start somewhere.
How did you get that first job?
That first job, like, again, this was a hustle. I mean, I was in university. My parents, like, they're awesome, but my dad taught at a university. My mom worked in international development. There was
What did
no
you
help.
teach?
My dad was in animal science.
Okay.
And then because actually Uruguay, where they're from, has a lot of cows, more cows than people in Uruguay. Fun fact. So very agricultural heavy. So that was part of the reason that they went to this town in Canada called Guelph, which has a big agricultural school. And then my mom, she's was always like, she's a incredible. So she worked in international development for Deloitte for years, and she traveled the world, and she was in management consulting. So I learned a lot from both of them. But yeah, there was no connections or help from them. For them, they were like, "You'll figure it out." Again, I was privileged for the fact that my parents were, they were able to provide the education for me to go to university.
Sure.
So I had a huge leg up to begin with. But even when I was at university, like, I did, I was a TA, like a teaching assistant. I did a exchange program. I did an internship that was the first job, an internship at a company called Celestica, where, we were making like graphic cards for Dell. Not exciting, but again, every opportunity helped me get to the next one. So that job at Maple Leaf Foods, I wouldn't have gotten that if I hadn't, put my hand up and volunteered for all those other things.
Was it just like networking? Or you applied to a job?
It's networking, but it's also like, because I think that's the other thing with networking. And I'll say this for any younger people out there right now. I get a lot of people who come to me, whether it's neighbors, friends, like, connections, and they say, "Hey, will you talk to this younger person? Like, they're in university or they just graduated." And I'm always happy to talk to them. But at the end of the day, we're going to give the job to people who've demonstrated grit and perseverance and who've gone out and gotten experiences. And so the networking, yes, it helps, but you need to substantiate it with experiences and demonstration that you've done things to give you that ability to get it. Like, that's because otherwise at Molson Coors, like, there's a lot of people that want to work here. Your job, like, and I say this because especially with younger people in a good way, get those experiences, start anywhere, join a club at school, get a part-time job, because then once you join that club, that's something that you suddenly have in your resume. And then that experience you can leverage to get something better, like a co-op, like an internship. Once you have an internship, that's really helpful then to be able to get a job. That's how I got my job at Maple Leaf Foods. So I say this because it's truly like your opportunities are what you make out of every opportunity you have in front of you today.
That's right. That's right. It's just like if you advertise.
I feel like I'm lecturing. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. And I'll put it, it's like some people ask me, like, should I do a stunt? Should I send a message in a bottle? Should I Venmo request a company $50,000 to get their attention, whatever it might be? But I always ask then, let me see your work. Let me see your resume.
Totally.
Because no amount of advertising will fix a bad product necessarily. So you need to make sure you work up, and then you can think about the creative brief for breaking in.
Totally.
And if the work's not there, you're not going to get the job.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Interesting. So then you had those internships, you broke in to Maple Leaf Foods there. What else then were some of those high points in your career, those critical decisions where there was a crossroad?
Yeah.
I could do this, I could do that. You made a decision, and then took you to where you're at today.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's different ones. Like, a fun one from Maple Leaf Foods was actually when I finally hit the jackpot on bacon. Now, at the time, bacon was considered to be like, it was part of the commodity category, because it kind of is a commodity if you think about it. But I remember I was probably in my mid-20s, and I'd go out to bars. I was single, and I'd meet guys. And I told them I worked on bacon. And suddenly it was like my ticket to a free drink. It was amazing.
That's big time.
Yeah. And I realized, like, bacon, wow, there's a lot of power in bacon. And so at that point, I thought, okay, what if we could do something with this? And I was a marketing manager at the time. So that same VP who's like, "Oh man, Sophia, you're crazy." We put together, he let me, they supported me to put together a brief of like, what if we created something interesting out of this insight, which is like bacon is like chocolate for men. This idea that people love bacon. And so out of that, like there's so many things we can poke holes into. I can poke holes into this campaign, but it was we worked on this idea with an agency out of Toronto called John Street. And we created, and this was back in 2006. So
Okay.
a long time ago, almost 20 years ago, but it was called the Republic of Bacon. And we created a world dedicated to people's love for bacon. We had like a national anthem. We had a flag. So the whole thing was ridiculous, but I was pretty young still in my career. And just the energy out of that was this like just such a sign to me of how much I loved being able to do this stuff. And so at that point, I realized like I probably wanted to do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And while Maple Leaf Foods was a great company, I thought, okay, it's probably good if I go and work at a company that has even more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I also met my now husband, Jonathan, there. He was working on hot dogs. I was on bacon. But he was
It's a good combo. It's a good combo.
He was going back to the US to do his MBA, and he's American. So if we ever wanted to be in the US, it probably made sense for me to work at a more global company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I made the move to PepsiCo.
Got it.
So I spent 7 years at PepsiCo, the first 2 years on the beverage side there. And then they were awesome. They helped me transfer to Chicago, and we wanted to be in Chicago. So I spent a number of years here.
Okay. Got it. And any like fun stories at PepsiCo?
I mean, PepsiCo is awesome. There's so many smart people that work at PepsiCo.
They're
A lot of ex-consultants. A lot of strategery is happening there.
There it is. There it is. You got that from SNL.
I don't know. I don't know where.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, like you really learn some great fundamentals. Really smart people, and I was working on the Chicago when I was here in Chicago. I was working on the cereal and oatmeal businesses. So actually, one of the really fun ones was Cap'n Crunch, and we had this whole kind of campaign around a late night talk show with Cap'n Crunch because we actually didn't want to be targeting our cereal to kids because it didn't fit like the nutritional requirements we wanted. So we were like, hey, let's target instead like the kids within adults. And so we had a lot of fun there. But I think, like one of the big ahas for me for PepsiCo was this was one of the last roles that I did when I was there. I was coming back from my second mat leave. So I had my boys, they're now 9 and 10, but I had them really close together. And I remember I was coming back after my second mat leave, and I thought I was going to come back to the same category, like running our cereal business. But instead, I got this other weird random role at the time, and it was like running growth channels, innovation. It was the job no one wanted. And I remember feeling at the time, like telling people, you don't want that job. But then they gave me that job. And I remember feeling I was pissed and frustrated for maybe a day or two. But I remember actually it was Jonathan, my husband, that said, Sophia, like, you got to look at the bright side of this. Like, you've already done the director of cereal job. This is something new that you can get new experiences with. You're going to be thinking about new go-to-market models. You're going to be thinking about innovating in e-commerce, like new partnerships. And it was just that click that made me reframe it. And it actually ended up being such a great experience because like something I really do enjoy is working with sales partners, is more of that like connection to the broader organization. And it did require for me to think and actually build these new innovation models that we didn't actually make happen at the time that I was there, but all the work to get there happened. And what's interesting, and it wasn't easy, like we didn't have funding. So it was a grind. And there were nights and days when I was like not very happy in the job. But the funny thing is that around that time, I got a call from Molson Coors because they needed a senior director of innovation. And if I hadn't had that experience, I wouldn't have gotten that job at Miller Coors. And so it's one of those things that is just such a good reminder that sometimes like these experiences that don't feel that great at the time can be the biggest blessing.
Absolutely. It all works out. Jack says that all the time. Okay, so that led you to Molson Coors. So, and that's where you're at today now. So we kind of went full circle here. So I have a couple extra fun questions about Molson Coors. Can you tell me about a time where you went above and beyond to help an agency make a great piece of work since you've been at Molson Coors?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think if I take a step back and if I look at the body of work our team is doing, I like to think that that's how the team operates in general, because to make the kind of, creatively effective in culture work, you got to go above and beyond most
Mhm.
of the time. Like, you have to be, if agency partner has a really great idea, most of the time it's pretty complex from a supply chain perspective. It needs legal to get on board right
Yeah.
away. So it requires our teams to just be in it from day one. If I look back, there was a time, so it was, I moved from innovation over to the Miller brands, actually, like right in the heat of the pandemic in 2020.
Mhm.
And it was a time too where the campaign we had, it didn't really make sense anymore, because like it was encouraging people, get out of your phone, like off your phone, go to the real world and get a beer, which you couldn't do during the pandemic. So we basically had to do a lot of real time marketing work. And as a result, we were working very closely with DDV at the time. There was so many great ideas that were coming, and it was just like this constant flywheel of just more and more things happening. At the time, Ari Weiss, I learned so much from him. He became a dear friend. He would probably call me every single night just to talk through ideas and push and pressure. And I remember my husband being like, "Oh, is that Ari calling again?" It sure is.
Oh
And
my
oh
goodness.
yeah, yeah. And like there would be debates and conversations and pushes. And so there's so many ideas that, we launched in the year or two, like Cantenna, canceled holiday work parties, URL, we can talk beer ornaments, Shoesy, beer drops. It's like, and so much of it required our teams to go above and beyond. So I say our teams because I did, but like, it's not just, it was everyone, it was all of our teams. It was Ari's team. It was all of us. And in a way, like, it was the pandemic, so this was a really fun thing to be focusing and distracting
Yeah,
ourselves
yeah.
on, and I think, like, and there were some moments, like, and the DDD team, the creative team at the time, the Knicks were on it, and,
Yeah. I got a question from the Knicks
oh,
that
okay.
I'm gonna be pulling up, but
Great,
yes,
great.
yes.
And I mean, I love the Knicks. They're like
Yeah.
little brothers to me, but I'll never forget. I mean, they had this one idea. It was the Shoesy, and so it was a partnership with New Balance, and
Everybody lock in. This is good.
maybe that was their idea, the thing they were asking about.
Mm.
But they had this great idea of essentially creating a koozie made out of a New Balance, and it was for Father's Day, and it was, hey, like, let's own it. We're kind of a dad's beer,
Mhm.
like the dad shoe. But we needed New Balance to be in. And so they created a beautiful deck, but they said, hey, we're the agency guys. Like, it's going to come off better if you reach out to them. And
You got more
so,
pull. You got more
yeah,
leverage there.
yeah. So, I mean, of course, like, this goes back, like, I don't even see it as going above and beyond, because anyone on our team would have done this.
Sure.
And like, we're happy to do it. And LinkedIn sleuthing is one of the funnest things you can do.
Oh, it's the best. It's the
So
best.
we agree. I love you guys on LinkedIn. It's fun.
Hey, thank you.
So we found Chuck on LinkedIn, sent him a random message. He's like some strategy guy at New Balance. And I remember like setting up a conversation with him. I think it was the first time I had I had a, Teams call with him. I usually like was not wearing makeup, a baseball hat. This time I actually brushed my hair,
Okay.
made myself presentable,
All right.
and then just said, Chuck, we got an idea for you. And I didn't really have to do much, because the deck that our agency partner ZDB had created was awesome. And
Mhm.
so the work spoke for itself. So I was just like, I'm just going to click these slides. You can read for yourself. But I was happy to help, and I think I don't know, I think this idea of going above and beyond, like the reality is now, our teams, they've created a little bit of an engine at
Mhm.
Molson Coors to be able to get these ideas out like that in the world. So a good example is last year, it was the Coors Lights Out idea
Mhm.
when Otani hit a foul ball into a Coors Light sign, and it made a little indentation on our can. It happened that day. We had actually a couple of different agency partners reach out to us that
Yeah.
day. I remember,
That's good. That's what you
yeah,
want.
that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you
you want
want.
that.
And I remember Marcelo, who's our VP of course, awesome, and he's just creatively fantastic. He and I were at an airport together. I think Aaron and Mike simultaneously texted us or called us. They already had like slides ready to go, and we said, "Yeah, we're in." And then, but what we needed to do was we needed to work really quickly with our teams and get the social post out and just get something out there. We needed to make sure that our legal teams were on board. And here's the thing, because we have been doing this kind of stuff,
Mhm.
we have just like laundry list of examples of work that some of it's worked, some of it hasn't, but we've built that muscle here internally.
Right.
They know, like, just start off small. Get it out there.
Right.
Don't waste a day.
Mm.
Take advantage of those first 24 hours. Put a social post, put something out there in the world, let it continue to build. And the cool thing too is it's like when our cross-functional partners, when they see that work out there too, when their neighbors, when their friends text them about it, they're proud too, because we're all in it together, And so that's where it's like, that's an example, the Shoesy one, like, again, it's not really for us, it's just being part of the team.
So the Shoesy one I want to go back to,
Yeah.
because that one, I mean, that one is I remember when it hit our fraternity group chat, like everybody was talking about, like, this is so cool. So you got on that Zoom call with the New Balance, Chuck.
Yeah.
And it was just after that call, it was just one call and it got approved and you made.
He was kind of excited and he goes, oh, I'm going to talk to the team internally here. And I think Chuck sold it in. I mean, Chuck was an integral member of the team as well.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of love for him. And then, like at the same time, like none of these things are linear. Like there's pivots and something doesn't work and you got to try and you got to do all this stuff. And so there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are making it happen. But like that was a good example of it. What are other ones? Oh, beer ornaments. That was an interesting one. This was like,
the beer ornaments.
The beer ornament.
Yes.
Yeah. So
those are awesome.
Yeah. But
I saw one. I think somebody had one.
Yeah. And initially, like, that was a great idea. But like, again, the DDB team had it, but like initially we couldn't figure out like the technology to make it work. And I'll never forget one day, Ben, who is the ECD, Ben Nolan, like reached out and he's like, hey, I got to talk to you. They cracked it. And like, we figured out a way to make it work. And it was like essentially creating like a shell, like, those Easter eggs, like the plastic ones. And like, you can put the beer can inside. And so it's just like, it's really fun when those things happen and they come together. And it truly is, it takes a village to do it.
I want to ask, what's the best thing that was never made?
Oh, yeah. So I don't know if I can say it. No.
Can we get something, please? We're
going to speak. We'll talk off the record after.
Okay.
We'll talk off the record. But I will say, like, I am proud that there's a lot of things that we have done that have used our constraints to be even more creative, right? And so if you think about before we were in the Super Bowl, we had some really fun creative ideas to get attention outside. So there was one where we had the world's longest URL. And if you typed it, you could get free Miller Lite to take attention away from our competitors. Like, we launched it during the Super Bowl when they had their ad on.
Nice.
All the work that the Coors team has done with Patrick Mahomes. So there's a rule with the NFL that if you're an active player in the NFL, you can't actually advertise beer on television. But Patrick Mahomes is a huge Coors Light fan. And so we want to celebrate that and we partner with him. And so the team has done things to be really creative. So they came up with I see you nodding. So the Coors Light, which was the Coors Light flashlight and like the Coors Light bear. So they just launched the time capsule work with them. So what I would say is I'm just really proud that the team is able to find these constraints to make our work even more creative.
Got it. Well, then we can bring it home then. So I really, the final two questions is, what advice do you have for somebody breaking into marketing? How do you break in? How do you stay in it for the long term to be a CMO one day? And then the other one is, what advice do you have for agency professionals out there?
Yeah. So the first one is advice for someone entering in. I mean, like, I think it goes back to the stuff that we talked about earlier, which is like, every experience is a good one, like, don't think that you have to start to that point by doing like the really sexy, like PR brand act and, something that's going to get you an award.
Yeah.
Every piece of work that you can get your hands on, give it your all. Like, take it seriously. Even if it's something that might not feel really sexy, you never know. And like, maybe, your client isn't going to want you to go that creative with it. That's fine. Push as hard as you possibly can to get it to the best place that you can. Because all of that is going to build your portfolio. And then eventually, like, the more and more work you have, the more creative opportunities you're going to get.
Yep.
And I think, the advice for agency partners, I mean, like, look, like the way our agencies have pushed us, like, I think what I actually really love, we didn't even get into it, but like, we built with our agency partners part of our creatively effective goal is we built a framework. I talk about it sometimes, and we built that with our agency partners, and it's all around building your creative muscle. And it's an acronym. That's like how we actually evaluate creativity at Molson Coors. And it's been really helpful for us because every idea that we brief on, that we give feedback on, is all built around this framework. And
Nice.
all of our agency partners, like the reason we actually developed it was part of the opportunity area we had was that our marketers were starting to rely too much on science to make decisions. So we had a lot of testing, we had a lot of data. And so when they were briefing for ideas or they were giving feedback, sometimes it was all based around beating a test.
Yeah.
And what we needed to do was essentially build our skill sets of how we could actually become stronger marketers. So if you think of someone who in advertising or marketing who has a lot of experience, we call it the marketing gut. And essentially it's a way that looks at work like magnetic. Does it make you feel something? Unexpected. Is it so cool that friends outside the advertising world are going to text you about it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it simple that you can explain it to your Uber driver? So I'm not going to go through every letter, but you can see the N, the U, the S. Every single marketer at Molson Coors uses this muscle framework. Our agency partners use it now too. But we built it with them. And so I would say, going back to like working with agencies, like the reason we developed that was pushes from our agency partners and how we could be better marketers. And then we did it together, which I really love.
That's incredible. Well, then, anything else that we need to go over? I think you did an amazing job. I really appreciate you having us here in the office. Jack, did you have anything? Any questions over there?
No. Speechless.
Really, what I learned is not all the opportunities you're going to get right away are going to be bacon.
No.
You have to start off maybe.
You might have to start off in meat snacks or sausages. Yeah.
Sounds pretty good to me too.
Man, sweet.
Sophia, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been incredible. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. Now we need a Coors Light.
Totally.
Sophia.
Sophia. Nice. Golden.
All right, thanks, guys.